ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dan Cairns, Dan Scrap for Food and Charity Foundation, the inventor of it. I promised I would do introduction and how to raise money for your favorite charities out there. Generally, this video and the fundraiser is done to help people out who are in need or who's trying to raise money for any kind of groups. It can be hockey groups trying to raise money for pads, hockey sticks. It can be for food banks. It can be for people that get burnt out of their homes or whatever. But this is Dan Scrap for Food and Charity Foundation. And I'm Dan Cairns. I'm not here for a pat in the back. Though I can tell you that people don't have money either. And I have a story to tell you that is 110% true. I've did many, many fundraisers. Many fundraisers out of scrap metal. Now, if you think that raising money by asking people, oh, can you donate your hard earnings to me? And you wait around and you wait around and wait around. To actually have that money dropped into your lap and where you don't have to do anything. Well, I believe in a little bit of hard work, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of hard work goes a long way. It does. It goes a very long way. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, if you were to actually do a little hard work, not as scared about any hard work whatsoever, then your fundraiser will be fun. Anything you do, if you find that it's fun, it goes much easier than what you expect. But I have a story to tell you that is absolutely 110% true. Now, this is how I invented Dan Scrap for Food and Charity Foundation in 2007, ladies and gentlemen. 2007. I was standing in my yard and my phone rang. And a friend of mine on the other end of the phone says, Dan. I go, yes, Tammy. She says, the food banks are running out of food. Hanover Salvation Army only had maybe 50 cans left on their shelves. Walkerton District Food Bank, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you firsthand, had one loaf of bread left in their freezer. People were lined up from outside the door down the street when I seen this. But I'm standing in my yard and I'm going, Tammy, what does this have to do with me? It's not my responsibility, sweetie, that food bank's running out of food. She says, I know. But you're pretty smart, she says. You always come up with some kind of idea that works. And I said, Tammy, I don't know how. I really don't know how or what to do here or why it's even my concern. She says, if you've seen it, Dan, people are lined up right down the street and they're being turned away. If they have children, they get a little box like this. That's it. They were trying to stretch out, trying to get money to have the food bank operating to feed these people. I said, well, I don't know what to do. I said, I'll talk at you soon. And I hung up the phone. I did. I have a flip phone. I just closed it. Put my phone in my pocket and I walked inside, made myself a cup of coffee. And it really started to bother me. Like, what does this have to do with me? I said to myself. And I went out and sat down on the step outside my door. I had a 17-acre farm at one time. But some people call me a loser. So I'd rather be a loser than a winner. Really, I would. But it wasn't time to reflect on that. When I sat down on my step, and I actually started to cry, ladies and gentlemen, of what I just heard. And I looked up at the sky, and it was a blue sky day. Sun was beating down. Oh, just a gorgeous day. And I was crying. I looked up at the sky, and I go, dear Lord, what do you want me to do? Please show me. Please tell me what to do. If you want me to raise money for these people, for the food banks. And at that time, I got up off my butt and I walked across the yard. Now, 2 weeks prior to this, I was to an auction sale. And I bought up the whole auction of their scrap metal. I did. There was lamps. There was bed frames. There was tin, steel, wires, page wire off an old fencing. I'm not telling you to go out and steal page wire or anything like that for your fundraiser. But it was all in this pile at the end of my barn. So what did I do? I walked out. I'm standing there. There's nobody else around. At least I didn't think there was. And I looked down at the ground and kicked the steel nut that was on the ground, the old lamps and stuff, steel lamps. I said, I should take that in, get some money for that. Someday. And I'm standing there looking at it. It was an old lawn tractor and stuff like that sitting in this pile. No wheels on it. And it felt like there was a hand pushing down on this shoulder like this, a good grip. And I couldn't turn around. And I heard this voice say, Dan, look at your feet. The answer is at your feet. And I kicked this pile again. I said, what? Scrap for food? Scrap for food. I said, but there isn't enough here. Ladies and gentlemen, there is not enough here to feed everybody. Not even close to it. To make the money that needed to be made. And the voice said to me again, ask somebody. Just ask people. And I turned around, and for a split second, I thought I seen God standing there. He just disappeared. It was like, whoa. So I waited till my neighbor come home, because he was, not only was he my neighbor, but he's my best friend. His name's Bill. Waited till he come home, because he was a mobilized scrap dealer. And I went over to see him. I said, Bill, can I have a couple minutes of your time, please? He says, sure. He says, what's up? I said, I want to raise some money for Hanover Salvation Army Food Bank and Walkerton Food Bank. He says, are you nuts? He says, are you a moron? That'll never fly. I said, why wouldn't it, Bill? And we always played back and forth, like who's going to be right, who's going to be wrong, who's going to be right. 9 times out of 10, he was right, but not in this instance. He wasn't right. And we're standing there, and I said, why not? He says, because the scrap's as high as it's ever been in our whole entire life. He said, scrap is through the roof. It's never been this high in 30 years. I forget what it was, $200, $300 a ton back then. And he says, and everybody's taking their scrap in. He says, this will never fly. I crossed my arms like this, ladies and gentlemen, and I looked at him, cocked my head and looked at him. I said, I beg to differ. Of knowing what just happened to me, but he didn't know what the hell happened to me. He thought I was nuts for doing this, I would put it. But I said, no. I said, I think it's going to fly. I said, I bet you if I can pull this off and it works, breakfast. He says, you're on. I said, let alone breakfast. If I pull this off, Bill, will you promise me that you'll come, clean up the scrap, and cut me 2 checks for the food banks? He said, sure. He said, you're on. We shook hands like this, like normal people would. Gentlemen do, old school. Shake your hands, give her a word. That's how it's supposed to work. And I went back over. I got in my truck and I went into Salvation Army. This is on the Wednesday. And all right, I had to sleep and got up in the morning on the Thursday morning, and I went in Salvation Army. And they said, damn, we're almost out of food. We can't give you any food. You know, if you had children or something, we could give you something. I said, I'm not here for that. And they looked at me and said, well, why are you here then? I said, I only need a couple minutes of your time. I want to raise some money for you people here at Hanover Salvation Army for your food banks as well as Walkerton District food banks. They said, how are you going to do this? I said, I just scrap metal, ma'am. She says, we have to put it up to the sergeant supervisors and ask them if it's okay if you could raise some money for us. I said, please do so and get back to me. I went out, and as I walked out the door, my eyes feasted on all these people lined up down the road. And I said, you people don't have to worry. Soon you'll have food and you'll be able to have food on your tables. And they all looked at me. What? I said, it'll come out here very shortly. I'm going to try and do a fundraiser. And I don't know how it's going to turn out. I was skeptical of how it was going to turn out myself. But I remembered the conversation and what happened in my yard at my farm 2 days prior. I got in my truck and I pulled out through the crowd, and they were lined up down the street. People of all ages with no food in their house to feed their families, wondering how they're going to make it through. Let me tell you, I drove all the way over to Walkerton, Ontario, Canada, to that food bank. God rest the soul of the gentleman who used to run it. He passed away some years back. But I said, walked in and I said to the gentleman, I said, I'm here. He says, oh, Dan, we can't help you. He says, I got 1 loaf of bread left in the freezer. I said, I'm not here for that. And he stopped and he looked at me and his eyes got big and bright and looking at me. He says, why are you here then? I said, because I want to raise some money for Walkerton Food Bank. He says, do you need a letter for it? I said, absolutely, sir. He says, by all means, he says, I'll give you a letter. And he typed me out a letter really quick and passed it to me on behalf. And it read, beyond half of the Walkerton Food Bank, Daniel Cairns of Hanover is going to do a fundraiser and help us get some money for our food bank. He's working on our behalf. I took that. I put it in my folder. I went out. The back of my truck, I drove all the way back into Hanover, another 10 kilometers back. And I went to Blue Water Radio. Bless their hearts, sir. What amazing people. The owner's amazing too. And I walked in and my friend Randy was sitting on the DJ booth, and I walked in and I said, "How you doing, Randy?" He says, "Not bad, Dan." He says, "How are you?" I said, "Not bad." He says, "What can I help you for?" I said, "Well, I want to raise some money for the food banks, for Hanover and Walkerton food banks." I said, "Can you help me?" He says, "Will you give me a minute?" He says, "And I'll put you on the air." I said, "Really? You're going to put me on the air?" He says, "Well, yeah." I said, "All right, Randy." I said, "I appreciate that. I do appreciate that you're going to put me on the air to discuss how I'm going to raise money for these two food banks." So him and I are talking back and forth on live mic, and I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Dan Cairns. I want to raise some money for Walkerton and Hanover food banks." This is in 2007. If you just tuned in, I appreciate you tuning in. And I said to them, I want to do it out of scrap metal. Says people don't have money. They don't have money to take out of their pockets all the time. They need money to pay their bills. But everybody's got scrap out there. Old bed rails, tin roof sheet and siding, like steel siding off of buildings, beams. Believe it or not, a can of peas. You eat the peas out of it. What do you do with the tin? You throw it out in the recycling. We also do bottle returns. Beer bottles, wine bottles, whiskey bottles, etc. You can see my YouTube video on Dan Scrap for Food, part 1. It has 24,000 views on it since 2007. I don't look for recognition or a pat in the back for what I do, because I figure I'm doing God's work. And that day, I believe that God was standing there. God was standing there and showed me how to do it. So it wasn't just my idea. It was our Lord Jesus too. Amen. Amen. Showed me how to do this. I do believe that he's still keeping me around so I can help other people with this. So anyhow, I did my spiel and I went home. This is on the Friday or Thursday night. Friday morning, Friday afternoon, I get a phone call from Salvation Army. "We have your letter, Mr. Cairns. Will you come and pick it up?" And yes, we would like you to try and make some money for us. And I explained to them too that the fundraiser that I'm doing, the money will be split evenly between Hanover Salvation Army and Walkerton. They said, "Not a problem. Whatever help that you can give us will be greatly appreciated either way." I said, "Well, I'm going to try it." So I set it up for 5 days. 5 whole days of collecting and hauling in, getting it hauled in, and getting the check for the two food banks that I received. But the wasn't just 2 checks. It was the amount of the checks. So anyhow, I collected that on the Friday. I went home and I started making signs up, easel signs like this. So you put a sign on the side and a sign on the side, like that. And a chain going across so they don't go like this on you. Whether trucks or cars going past them, ain't going to get blown over. I set them out all around the major intersections and towards Hanover, Walkerton, towards Hanover, and how to come out towards me with their scrap metal and stuff. I got it all set up. Monday morning come around. I set it out over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, set them out. Monday come. Nobody showed, ladies and gentlemen. Not one person. And I felt really bad that nobody showed up. I had even a couple tears come down my face saying, well, what? Maybe Bill was right. But I thought, no. Maybe he wasn't right. And it was skeptical. But I got the biggest surprise. I got the biggest surprise I ever got when I walked out the door Tuesday morning. Even though the scrap prices was $200 and something a ton, $300 a ton, most they ever were, because they were up that high. I had 4 trucks, pickup trucks loaded with appliances. I had no compressors in them, old barbecues, fencing wire off the farms, old T-rails that were just bent like steel, whatever. They were no good to pound in the ground anymore. Gentleman sat in the truck and he says, "Where do you want it, Dan?" And I said, "Well," I said, "right there in the field, sir." He says, "And we got a lot more, and it was cost us more to take this stuff into the scrapyard, and you're right here doing a good cause, and we want to donate it." I said, "Well, God bless you. God bless you for it." Because Bill come by on the Monday night, he looked in, ha. I told the stupid SOB it wasn't going to work. But I had one over on Bill. I had a helping hand in this. And I believe it. Because I couldn't have did it without him. I'm talking about God. I couldn't have did it. So Bill comes by on the Tuesday night and he goes, "Huh? Oh, little bugger, he's got a little bit." Come by on the Wednesday. "Oh my God, he's got a little bit more. A lot more." Come by on the Thursday. "Oh my God, look at the pile growing." On the Friday night, ladies and gentlemen, if I'm lying to you, lightning can hit me right here on the spot. Bill gets out of his truck with his Timmies, and he waltzes across, and I come out of the house with a cup of coffee of my own, in my mug. And I looked out, and I'm kind of gloating. I'm just, yep. So I walked out, and here's Bill standing at the pile, and he's looking right up like this, and he's going like this, down this, like this, and he says, I walk out, I fall on his head, and I turned back to look because I thought he'd put his head back the other way, and he's looking right at me. He says, "Let me tell you, I don't know how in the heck you pulled this off or how you did this." I said, "Well, that was easy, Bill." I said, "All you have to do is ask people." You know, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, a can of peas, a can of creamed corn. You eat the contents, and what do? You got the can there. Okay? You have the can. You throw it in the recycling blue box. That is scrap metal, believe it or not. Old shovels, steel spades, rakes, stuff like that is all scrap metal. In your fundraiser, you do not take at all any fridges, freezers, unless the compressors are completely out of it. You don't take air conditioners unless the compressors are out of it, and it has to be decommissioned by an appliance guy that takes the Freon out, and he has to tag it. But if you can take compressors out, I'm not telling you to do it because of the Freon that's in it. It's dangerous to have it. But if it's taken out, The compressors aren't in there. That's the big round black things on the back of them. It sits on the back of it. You can see it with all the copper piping and stuff going up. You could take that. If it doesn't have it, you can take that freezer and you can load up that freezer. Or lay that fridge down and load that fridge up with little things. Like pruning shears, old chainsaws that's not working anymore, that are scrap, chains, bicycles, you name it. You can load it right up. And that's what was in this pile. It was a mixture of everything. Everything. Bill come by and loaded up the truck Monday morning. All of his trucks. He had 2 or 3 trucks at the time. And he came in with flatbeds and his tractor. And he loaded it all up with stuff. And he took it all in. Now keep in mind that this stuff's big, so it takes up a lot of room. He tried to get as much into a bin as possible using the fridges. You open them up, lay the racks down inside, and you fill it up full of small stuff. Old batteries, like flashlight batteries, whatever. Throw it in there. Scrap. Anything metal. So at least you're wide range. You do not want propane tanks or anything that has Freon in it, okay, or any type of gases, okay, in it. You don't want anything that's going to cause a fire in your bin. If it's a old rototiller, check the gas tank. It's only a little gas tank like this. Sometimes there's a black one. You open it up, see if the gas is in it. Make sure those people get the gas out of that machine before it goes in your bin. Old riding lawn tractors, lamps, posts. Well, you guys get the idea. It's very easy to watch for this stuff. So he loaded it up, and I'm day 5 into this. And he calls me up on the Monday night. He says, "You want to come over and get these checks?" I said, "Absolutely." I said, "How would you do?" He says, "You did extremely well." He gave me 2 checks, ladies and gentlemen, for $400 each. That's $800 that I raised in 5 days. Now, this will work for any charity going out here. Whoever you are, wherever you are, this will work. You need volunteers with pickup trucks, or else you can go to the scrapyard if you have a local scrapyard and they want to donate you a bin at 100 to 150 a bin, which they take off the top from their load. So if they're charging you $100, let's say for a 40-yard or 30-yard bin, big doors open on the back of it. You don't want a lugger bin where you have to heave them up over the side. You want to be able to walk stuff in and put it in neat to get more weight in the bin. More weight that you get in the bin, the more you get paid over the top of the bin. And they will give you a printout sheet of how much the load was, and they'll take off their bin charge, and you get the remainder for your fundraiser. And that's how it was done. On the Tuesday morning, I went in. I had made a phone call to Salvation Army to meet at 12 o'clock noon at Blue Water Radio in Hanover. And I asked Walkerton to come in as well. One of the representatives come in. And on my behalf, I donated the checks to them, $400 each. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, God bless it, because you see, those food banks are still going to this day. They are. They're going strong to this day. That Everybody hasn't, that I know of, hasn't had a problem in that area. But it doesn't matter if you're a burn victim or whatever. I don't want people running into an old burned building, pulling scrap out of their own. If they get permission from the fire department to do that, then they're totally do it on their own. But if they got scrap TVs or whatever, not the big flat ones, they're not taking them anymore, but the older type, they will take them flat metal. But like I said, try and stay away from barbecue tanks. You don't want any type of propane cylinders. Not even the small bottle cylinders like this, where it was propane in when you put a nozzle on the top of it. None of that for any type of cook stove. You don't want anything with Freon in it. You don't want old air conditioners unless the compressor's been taken out of it. But other than that, any type of metal will work. But in 2007, I raised $700. I've also, for Paisley Food Bank, for the local food bank, and the local school for the breakfast club for the children. Because there is a lot of children out there that absolutely goes to school without food. It might not be the parents' fault for not having the food in. Something could happen where they're running late. They might have got up late. They might not have eaten before they went to. A child's brain works better if they have food in their system and something to drink. They can concentrate. It's like waking up in the morning, ladies and gentlemen, and you need your cup of tea or your cup of coffee to get mobile all the time. But you need it. You need it to get mobile. I know I do. So it might be a pop for somebody. It might be orange juice. It doesn't matter. We also do bottle returns. Beer bottles, wine bottles, whiskey bottles, whatever. Goes back to the depot, so you get money out of that. This is part of the fundraiser. Isn't just scrap metal. It's beer bottles, wine bottles, whatever. And there is different types of metals. There's precious metals, and there's regular metals is what I call them. There's different categories for metals. It's a multi-billion-dollar business that these people thrive on. And it's people like you and me that do something. This is the perfect time of year to actually do a fundraiser, because it's spring cleanup time. Put the money to good use. Maybe you want to take your scrap metal in and use it for, building a shop, or the starting of a shop, or helping to build it. Or how about helping out burnt victims, like what happened over in Kirkland Lake with the fire? Or how about the people out west years ago that had a forest fire and they got kicked out? My common law wife and myself donated $100 to Red Cross for them out there, that a gentleman gave me to use in any way I wanted. I said, I know exactly where this is going. And I flabbergasted him. He says, where? Can I ask where this is going? It's going to be donated to the fire victims out west in Fort McMurray, Alberta. You remember that one. Went for water, went for food, went for whatever. It was still donated. We raised $270.70 for the Paisley Food Bank and the Paisley School for the Breakfast Club for the kids. These got $135.30. 35 cents. $32.50 or whatever it was. Okay. Is what they got. Split between them. We raised $160 for First Nations Indian Reserve. We were right on the reserve doing it for them. If you're getting low on gas when you're doing it, if you're driving the pickups or the trucks, you're allowed to take $20 out of the load to put in your gas tanks for fuel. You are a volunteer, so volunteers generally don't get paid. But your gas is paid for. Tony find that right to do. But ladies and gentlemen, like I said, people don't have money in their pocket to donate all the time. But people do have scrap metal. I'm Dan Scrap for Food and Charity Foundation, founder of Dan Scrap for Food. I invented this along with the good Lord. I made this shorter than my other video, first video that I ever did in 2007 when I did it. My videos are all true. It's happened. And I can honestly tell you that I don't look for a pat in the back. I will help you. All you have to do is subscribe to my video and ask for help or see me on Facebook. But if I can help you by walking you through and being there if you're doing a fundraiser and you have a question and you know how to get a hold of me, I'll answer your question as soon as I can. If you're in Northern Ontario now where I am, I don't mind helping out if you're close enough, as long as there's a place for me to sleep at night. If not, I'll sleep in the cab of my truck. I don't care. I will go in the morning to a restaurant to have something to eat. I'll go use their facilities, and I'll clean up a little bit for day 2. But I will sleep in my truck if I have to. I've lived on the streets. I know what it's like. But this is for any fundraiser that you're doing, regardless if it's for children, for new hockey equipment or sticks, or I'm just giving examples here. The list is 1.2 miles wide by 4 miles and some odd lengthwise width. Doesn't matter. If you have a scrap yard in your town, you can do this or close by. So, in closing, I thank you very much for watching my video. And God bless you and good luck with your fundraiser. I give everybody permission to use this. I don't make any money off it. I don't think it was invented by God and myself to make money, as long as we can help somebody like you out there. You never know. It could be you that has a bad time, and I pray to God that it isn't. And I bless every one of you that ever watched this video. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Dan Cairns from Dan Scrap for Food and Charity Foundation, giving you the information site here of how to do your fundraiser wherever you are. Bless you. I know.